the fact that Aspiration, by the time they had to pay Kawhi, never had the money to begin with, and the Clippers kept having to send wire payments to them. And for those of you that are watching the video version, there will be plenty of visuals as we go through the many documents and pay schedules. This is how much of a bag Pablo Torre really got into, and it makes for a great fucking spectacle. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
We made one of the 10 richest people in the world fly to Bristol, Connecticut. That says a lot, I would say, about what the level of urgency is. I think this whole thing seems pretty cut and dry. And it's not just because I've talked to multiple NBA owners who effectively have told me the same thing, that the facts seem clear, but it's also because what it takes to prove cap circumvention, salary cap circumvention in the collective bargaining agreement, which has been characterized by Commissioner Adam Silver as a cardinal sin in the league, that also, according to the language, seems cut and dry in terms of what is useful for the league to consider. And so I just want to quote Article 13, Section 2 of the collective bargaining agreement with the NBA and its players under the heading, quote, no unauthorized agreements. It says, a violation may be proven by direct or circumstantial evidence, including but not limited to evidence that a player contract or any term or provision thereof cannot rationally be explained. End quote.
Now, this is where Adam Silver is caught in a conundrum, because is he really gonna punish Steve Ballmer, the guy that not only came into the league inflating all the prices of NBA teams, but he bought the stadium, paid it for himself, he bought the land, he's been good for business. According to the NBA rules, they don't actually have to investigate him and find 100% proof like on the legal side. There's enough presumed evidence here. But once again, Ballmer is the Jerry Jones of the NBA. So are you really going to take away Kawhi, cancel his contract, knowing that Ballmer spent all that money buying up the land, paying for the arena? You're about to have the All-Star game over there this season. And they've even announced that this investigation could go past the All-Star game. How convenient. Again, this is big business. There's a lot of money on the line. And I've always alluded in my previous segments that the NBA is 60% marketing, 30% business, and 10% basketball. And we're seeing all phases of it, especially on the marketing side. With Adam Silver, the way he speaks in these press conferences, slowly in the past 5 years, he went from speaking to the American audience when it comes to the NBA. Now he's speaking to the globe. And it was very carefully crafted through his words. That's why I say the NBA is 60% marketing. They make you think that they're not money hungry as the NFL. That's their branding. But in reality, the NBA, ever since Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, have gotten a league to pop off and start reeling in the viewers and cash. They've never been a league where the average fan could just put on one of their games on television and see it for free. It's always been, for the most part, behind a paywall, whether it be cable TV, and now we see it with streaming. Look how fractured that they have all their games. You have to have Amazon, you have to have an NBC, Peacock, all these services, ESPN. They've always been chasing behind the bag, and they've done a great job marketing the league to not make it look like they're chasing the money like everyone knows the NFL to be. But in reality, the NBA has been just as money hungry, if not even more. At least the NFL has their games accessible on a local side to their fans. If you live in a particular city, you can see that city's team for free. The NBA has never had a setup like this. And now headed into streaming, the local games are going to be more expensive to see versus the nationally televised games. So just keep this in mind.
I had forgotten the last part, the cannot rationally be explained clause, but I mean...
Well, that's what the investigation's for.
David, what does that mean legally? Cannot rationally. And I think we understand what that means, but in a legal sense, how do you prove?
Nothing. It's completely wishy-washy.
Right.
There is no legal threshold. Remember, we are not in a court of law.
We're going back in time to a critical moment in Steve Ballmer's relationship with Kawhi Leonard and Aspiration that I have not yet discussed with you guys. And I did not appreciate it myself until it hit me. The month is December. The year is 2022. So you may recall that Kawhi Leonard is back from his torn ACL. He's now tearing up the Boston Celtics. in December of 22. I just need to establish that you may recall that in the last episode we did, I convinced an anonymous source in Aspiration's finance department to go on tape. There was a condition that we use what?
Voice modulation.
Which I granted because of the ongoing parallel investigations by the DOJ and the FBI and the SEC and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, otherwise known as the CFTC, and I want to respect just the sensitivity of the fact that this is a giant national scandal involving one of the richest people on the planet. All of which is to say that for this episode, what we're about to do here involves the product of the vetting and fact-checking and persuading that I spent time doing with another source, who I convinced to separately talk to me about December 2022. And they agreed to the same conditions.
I was a very senior executive in finance. I was also painfully aware of the fact that the contract between Kawhi and Aspiration was to circumvent the salary cap. I too brought that up with some of the more senior executives at the firm who were also aware of this fact. And much like many of the very senior executives at Aspiration, I had to spend a lot of time having conversations with some federal agencies about some of what was happening inside of Aspiration.
And I also just got to say thank you to you, original source number one, because when you came on the show the first time, no one had any idea what we were doing. Now you've had the experience of listening to other people listen to your voice modulated self. And could you clarify whether you have also been interviewed by federal agencies in the course of their investigation into Aspiration?
Yes, I have.
So what was December 2022 like inside of Aspiration as you personally experienced it?
A show. December 2022, the company had virtually no income, no pipeline of clients, was really looking like it wasn't going to be able to make payroll.
The ship was sinking. It was just a matter of how long we could hold on.
And we ended up doing 2 rounds of layoffs. The first round was in the first week of December, where a bunch of very high-level executives got laid off. The president, the general counsel, some C-suite. And then the second round of layoffs, which was in the second week of December, was almost 20% of the entire staff. So about 100 people were laid off. I mean, to say it was bleak is almost an understatement. And I asked a lawyer, given the scenario of the company and what I'm seeing on a daily basis and the literal lack of cash in the company, what do I need to do to protect myself? I didn't want to have exposure if these numbers, as I had and as a lot of other executives I was speaking to had suspected, were not 100% accurate. I literally did retain a law firm, and I was sending emails to other people in the C-suite letting them know that unless I saw certain things on paper, I was unable to proceed with bringing in these investors.
The last sentence is what's interesting to me. They're out trying to find money. So when you're a company and your revenues are being outgunned by your expenses, you've got 2 choices. 1, you can lower your expenses, or 2, you can increase your revenues. In the absence of either of those, you got to go 3, and that's going to the capital markets. You can take money off a credit card. That's the crudest way to do it. You can borrow money at those usurious interest rates, or you can go to a bank and try to get a line of credit. You can get a bridge loan from a bank, which is you borrow money to make payroll until your next revenue payment comes, and then you pay that bridge loan back. You can get long-term financing from a bank, sometimes a bank of ill repute, and it just depends what interest rate you pay. So you have to go through all of those options, which I assume Aspiration did.
So they badly needed money. The people that we talked to, the one news source number 2, is saying that they didn't feel comfortable asking others for money given what they were learning about the company behind the scenes. These are the people, by the way, who cooperated with the federal agencies. Just give people a sense of like who's talking to me. This company, to summarize what our 2 sources now have told us on tape, December 2022 was fucked. So, for instance, here's another thing that happened. In October of 2022, right? This is by Q4 of 2022, the week before the NBA season started. There was a Bloomberg headline out in public that everybody could see about how Andre Cherny, Aspiration's co-founder, CEO, the guy who had signed and executed Kawhi's secret no-show endorsement deal right next to Kawhi's signature, had resigned from the company. But now, briefly, imagine you're the Clippers. Imagine you're the team that Amin is wearing on his chest in December 22. In September of 21, you will recall vividly, Steve Ballmer had announced Aspiration as the thing on their chest, their jersey patch sponsor, right? The first founding partner of the Intuit Dome. Aspiration agreed to pay, do you remember? More than $300 million to the Clippers in sponsorship money over 23 years. Given what you now heard about December 22, spoiler alert, that didn't exist.
And it's crazy how they quickly ran out of money within a year. They were estimated to be worth around $800 million, and they're supposed to get way more investments. That is crazy. It makes you wonder if it was really a clearinghouse.
What was clear, though, is that inside of Aspiration, according to my 7 sources, as well as Aspiration's internal cash forecast for sponsorship payments, which is a spreadsheet I obtained that you, David, now get to review in your mystery folder there. You can get it.
Now?
Yes.
You have the cash flow of Aspiration?
It's the cash forecast for sponsorship payments. Don't read it out loud yet.
Now, right here, Pablo, man, he's doing some digging. Best believe he already had this information beforehand. And by the time he dropped his first episode, he put out enough information as bait. And Mark Cuban bit into it, defending everything Ballmer did, trying to debunk Pablo's story. Adam Silver making it seem like he'd even hear of Aspiration, even though they have a $300 million sponsorship deal with the Clippers. And you gotta wonder, because Aspiration filed for bankruptcy and all this paperwork was made public, how did no one in NBA media even look into this? It doesn't strike me that Pablo has $1 million budget and just a whole staff of people that he can hire to go through all this. It goes to show you the relationship between these sports leagues and these media entities are very symbiotic, and they're not in the business of reporting of what's actually going on. We see the NFL now has a stake in ESPN, and are they really going to report what's going on in the league or just the NFL's agendas? Because that is the brand new relationship that most of these sports leagues and media entities have today. Pablo Torre's reporting puts a magnifying glass not necessarily only on the Clippers, but just on the national media. What the fuck is their purpose in today's landscape? They've almost become the new bike messengers for these sports leagues.
So the smoking gun question we're all contemplating. It's the thing that I think I have uncovered that we're about to learn about. I think it's what the NBA just hired a very high-powered law firm to search for. Because by the end of 2022, one of the company's absolute top priorities, despite the total financial show enveloping this company, was simple. Hey, KL2 Aspire LLC. David, what is it marked there on the cash forecast that Aspiration was internally using to make its sponsorship payments?
It is marked critical.
So for those of you that are watching the visual version, we're seeing the cash forecast, and the only accounts that are really kind of put in critical are any payments that are due to Kawhi. And as we continue to listen, we're going to find out by the time they were supposed to make their first scheduled payment to Kawhi, Aspiration already didn't have any money.
Because in Kawhi Leonard's 4-year secret endorsement deal with this fraudulent company, which is now on the express train to bankruptcy, Kawhi's $7 million annual salary for doing absolutely nothing needed to be paid quarterly.
Right.
Okay? 4 $1.75 million installments. The first installment, $1.75 million, due in June of 22. The second, $1.75 million installment, due in September. The third, $1.75 million installment, due in December. But Amin, Aspiration had a problem. What do you think the problem was about making those payments?
They don't have any cash.
According to this Green Bank's Silicon Valley Bank statements, which I have acquired and confirmed and have in the folder in front of you, Amin, when does Aspiration send that first wire to Kawhi Leonard, and how much is it? It is due in June 22. What do you have in front of you there?
July 6, 2022.
That's crazy. They was already late on the first payment. I know Uncle Dennis was spazzing out. He does not fuck around when it comes to his money. My man took out his brick phone and was making 1,000 calls a day.
July 6, 2022. Wire out to KL2 Aspire LLC, $1.75 million.
So the first payment, David, is late of this critical priority deal. Doesn't arrive until July 2022. Not encouraging in terms of the launching of this business relationship. Likewise, your folders will include Aspiration's September and October bank statements for your review. You may now look at that. This is when the next $1.75 million is due to be wired. And spoiler alert,
there is no transaction involving KL2 Aspire LLC.
I mean, I'm gonna do you a favor and tell you that I didn't see that either on that statement you have in your hand. Look, the lateness of these payments, right? So September was supposed to be the second payment. There was nothing there. October comes and goes. And Kawhi Leonard is now playing NBA basketball for the Los Angeles Clippers and not getting paid by Aspiration. And so now we're in November. So I just ask you guys to imagine now, what do you think Uncle Dennis or anybody in his shoes would be feeling during this time as this contract was not getting paid and was now running late perpetually?
Well, I mean, I'm sure he was very calm and rational and didn't pick up the phone and call them a million times, banging down the door trying to find out where the money is.
Which is all to say that Uncle Dennis was pissed.
So in all fairness to Uncle Dennis, he's not the only one who's calling trying to get paid. There's a huge freeze because there's no money to be spent. So from the finance team's perspective, we feel like we're on the other end of collections calls. People are constantly coming in asking for their money. But between those months when all of this is missing, so September, October, November, and leading up to December, the actual certainty of the company even existing is up for grabs at that point. Are we going to get paid as employees? Why does Uncle Dennis keep calling us? We have such bigger concerns that we're thinking about, which is our own salaries. Are we going to have to go through layoffs? Where is the money going to come from? But lo and behold, Uncle Dennis gets paid.
David Sampson, former president of the Marlins, please tell us when exactly Aspiration finally does wire their months-late second payment to Kawhi Leonard.
December 15th of 2022, $1.75 million.
So this payment was made December 15th, 2022.
Mm-hmm.
When was the 20% of the staff laid off?
The same day.
Oh.
That deflated O.
There was a lot of deflation in December 22, in fact. But the thing I want to answer with you guys here is the deeply underrated question of how Aspiration finally paid Kawhi Leonard his second ever payment on December 15th, 2022. And so, Amin, I want to point you back to the December bank statement, which you have in front of you, from Aspiration's checking account. You may notice something that I noticed as you scan that, because something happened just 9 days before the wire out to Kawhi's KL2 Aspire LLC for $1.75 million on December 15th.
On December 6th of 2022, a wire in from DEA 88 Investments in the amount of $1,999,999.59.
Now, again, keep in mind, this company has no money, so someone wired money in just for it to go right back out to Kawhi. This right here for Adam Silver is something that if he asked Steve Ballmer about, there's no way to tap dance around this. It's all in the paperwork. Aspiration at this point has no money. And through this bankruptcy, they could see all the paperwork, all the receivables, any money that was supposed to come in, what dates they came in, and how much money was going out. I think Aspiration being in bankruptcy is what's really tying up Adam Silver right here. And if I was Steve Ballmer, I would stop making appearances and speaking on this situation. Unless he got one hell of a pair of tap dancing shoes, he can't cha-cha slide out of this. He can't do the Macarena. He can't do all kinds of dances.
$1.99 million comes in 9 days before Kawhi Leonard is scheduled to get paid amid the total collapse of the economic premise of this entire company. But here's what's even stranger. According to our review of Aspiration's cap table and bank statements, there is no evidence that prior to December 6th, 2022, DEA 88 Investments, LP, had ever invested in Aspiration before, which I also confirmed with my sources, which means that DEA 88 Investments, LP, chose to invest that precise amount while this company was basically sinking into the ocean. And so given all of this, I said to myself, should probably look up the registered agent on file for DEA 88 Investments LP. And it turned out to be a man named Dennis.
Dennis Robertson?
Not Uncle Dennis, a different Dennis.
Another Dennis.
Dennis Wong.
Oh.
Dennis Wong, our different Dennis, is a fascinating character. Different Dennis, the guy who paid $1.99 million to Aspiration 9 days before Aspiration paid $1.75 million to Kawhi Leonard on the same day Aspiration laid off 20% of its staff, is this Dennis. Not Uncle Dennis, but the Dennis seen breaking ground on Intuit Dome in 2021 in a COVID mask off to the side of Steve Ballmer in this video, which we played in episode 1, no less than 5 feet from Kawhi Leonard.
Now, this information right here, I believe Pablo already knew this. He been knew this. But he sat there and did a whole episode with Mark Cuban just debunking himself, putting himself in Pablo's spiderweb. This is maniacal by Pablo right here. And that's a nuance that needs to be pointed out a lot more. Adam Silver, Pablo Torre, and the Clippers organization making numerous statements. They might have assumed that he just had that initial reporting and that would be the end of that. But him just dropping all these gems, speaking to all these people that used to work in the company, and most importantly, having the power of distribution of getting this information out with the way technology has evolved. This is a landscape for people in Steve Ballmer's generation especially, they are not accustomed to.
He, in fact, is the Dennis in this other video we have, who is literally in the shadow of Kawhi Leonard and Steve Ballmer in hard hats at the Intuit Dome construction site. There it is.
He's got a jersey?
He's got a jersey and a hard hat with his name on it.
Oh my God.
He, in fact, is the Dennis you can find sitting courtside right next to Steve Ballmer, as in this photograph.
Oh man.
Dennis J. Wong, our different Dennis, is the vice chairman of the Los Angeles Clippers.
Oh, come on, man.
He is the one and only limited partner, in fact, of the team. This has not been reported previously, but Steve Ballmer, the richest owner in all of sports, by far, has a very strange arrangement with his ownership group. Because the ownership group is Steve Ballmer owning 99%,
Right.
and Dennis J. Wong owning 1%, and that's it.
Now, this is very interesting because most NBA owners don't have it set up like this. They're owning 99% of the team. Because remember, when you own that much, any losses from the team is coming out of your pocketbook. So for the most part, most of these owners, they have a lot of minority owners underneath them. They probably own 60, maybe 70% of these teams. But that's crazy, owning 99% of just the cash flow possibly going wrong, paying luxury tax. That's a different type of level of money, boy. But this is the person that Adam Silver has to answer to, and in a way has to reprimand, but this is his boss. Adam Silver works for Steve Ballmer at the end of the day.
And that's current.
That is today. Dennis J. Wong is the alternate governor of the Los Angeles Clippers. He is the guy that Steve Ballmer empowers to attend the Board of Governors meeting when Steve Ballmer can't make it.
Can I just repeat it in a way that uses my brain the way it's Rolodexing at the moment? Are you saying that the 1% limited partner of the Los Angeles Clippers, who is the vice chairman of the Clippers, made an independent decision to invest in Aspiration for this first time in his own name or his own entity's name, 9 days before Kawhi Leonard got paid when no one else was getting paid?
And also in that same month where Aspiration clearly didn't have any money. there was no financials that they could provide Wong for him to take a look at to see if the company was even worth investing into.
I am saying that is exactly what happened. And I am also saying that you should probably know that Dennis J. Wong was also Steve Ballmer's college roommate at Harvard in 1975.
These are the things that I'm kicking around in my head. I got my Clipper jersey on. I'm trying to think about this in the most innocent way and say, well, maybe the Clippers, and by extension, Dennis Wong, didn't know that Aspiration was headed to the shitter. And so he's like, hey, Steve, what's the name of that company you invested in? $50 million? Like, oh, Aspiration. I love them. Cool. I think I'm going to finally get off my keister and go ahead and put in a little quiche on it. 2 million sounds about right.
There is no way that Dennis Wong was not aware of the existing relationship that Steve had with Aspiration.
Well, it's not that. Was he aware of the existing financial dire straits that the company was in?
I don't think it mattered to him. If he had been asked if he needed to put in the $2 million to get it to Kawhi, he didn't do it with the expectation
David,
to get his money back.
I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt here.
We reached out to Dennis Wong via email, by a phone number linked to him in a records database. Also to the Clippers with interview requests, detailed list of questions, as we do here at Pablo Torre Finds Out. We outline our reporting, and Wong did not respond before our deadline. I mean, I wanna validate your attempt here.
Right.
And I want to acknowledge something, which is that if you do think that maybe Dennis Wong was blind to the utter mess unfolding inside of Aspiration at the time,
right,
a useful detail to know is that his daughter just happened to be an employee at Aspiration.
Jesus Christ.
Dennis Wong's daughter?
According to her LinkedIn bio, which reads Project Manager, Operations, and Strategy, which means that through his college roommate and partner, Steve Ballmer, who had invested $50 million of his own money into Aspiration, and through Aspiration's deal that was collapsing with the team Dennis co-owns, the only limited partner of the team, the Clippers, and also through his own daughter, who was witnessing the sinking of this ship firsthand.
Damn, that's crazy. So they had an inside scoop of what was going on with Aspiration the whole time. God damn. This story keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And once again, Pablo already knew all this as he sat down and just let Mark Cuban try to debunk him for an hour and just let him sit on that and just fall deeper into that spider web.
Who my sources all knew as a colleague. He had several very informed ways to know quite a bit about what company he was sinking $2 million into right as Kawhi Leonard needed to be paid $1.75.
It's almost like the opposite of insider trading, right? You had the scoop to not put money in.
Yes.
Unless you weren't
Allegedly.
investing in this to make money. You were investing in this for a different reason.
And I should also clarify that, let's call him Grandpa Dennis. Grandpa Dennis specializes in real estate. He's a brilliant and wealthy investor. And he's a noted philanthropist, including to one conservative think tank. The guy knows his way around a dollar. And around the NBA, what Dennis J. Wong is most known for, actually, is helping build the building that his old roommate cares about more than any other.
Damn, I'm fired up! I have to say, I'm a little anxious tonight. I love what we built, but I want all of you to love what we built. But my partner, Dennis Wong, sitting here in the front row, Dennis is in the real estate business. And he said, come on, we've known each other since 1975. Come on, we can do this, Ballmer, let's go. And I said, okay, we need our own house.
I just want to acknowledge what we've established here in a simpler way, which is that the only other owner of the team that is denying that this was cap circumvention invested almost exactly the amount of money needed to finally pay off Kawhi Leonard, having never invested in this company, which was in December 22, as you've exhaustively conveyed, going into the his college roommate is Steve Ballmer, who put in 50. His daughter is an employee, as well as the basic fact that, I don't know, maybe he just had a sense that $2 million into a company that had previously raised over 300 was a weird thing, as my first source did want to underscore.
There's multiple things that are conspicuous. One, we're broke. We're broke. So to invest in a broke company is beyond me.
And second, I just want to add on to this. Wong invested money just to pay Kawhi in December, but that was for the second payment for Kawhi that was supposed to happen in September. So not only they were late on the first payment, which was in June of 2022, they paid that in July of 2022. They were late on the September 2022 payment, in which they handled it in December of 2022 by Wong submitting that payment, and then they paid Kawhi. So in that same December month, Kawhi's third payment was now due. So we're still only talking about the second payment. This shit gets deep, boy, but we're gonna find out.
Really don't understand it, but I must not be a very sophisticated investor. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is the amount that's being invested. That's such a nominal amount if we're talking pure investment, especially in a late stage startup that's in the process of a SPAC or on the outside date of a SPAC or going to SPAC at some point and has already raised in a year earlier $300 million. What does $2 million buy you?
But I did want to know what my second source knew at the time about the different Dennis in question.
I knew the name Dennis Wong because I got 2 texts from this very senior executive at the firm regarding Dennis Wong.
So inside of Aspiration, Dennis Wong's investment was identified as an investment with the Clippers clearly attached as part of the identification.
Yeah, and I do have another text as well. This is from November 13th, 2022. And it says, Wong is Ballmer partner.
How surprising is it that a new investor would put money in December 2022 who had not already clearly been deeply invested into the company?
So it is beyond shocking. And I will tell you, I knew that the board, which is Ibrahim al-Husseini, who's been indicted, and Joe Sandberg, who's been indicted, I knew that they had put money in December to make payroll and make rent and all that material. It is not a rational investment that someone would make. So it is very shocking to me that $2 million was made as an investment by Dennis Wong, who in my text is identified as the Clippers, Steve Ballmer's partner, a week before $1.75 million was paid to Kawhi.
And by this time, KPMG, the accounting firm, had resigned from being their auditor. And also 2 government agencies was already beginning to investigate Aspiration, the SEC and FINRA. This shit is wild because if Adam Silver asked Steve Ballmer, why did Dennis Wong put money into these companies with all these things going on? Oh man, I don't know. Steve Ballmer got some cha-cha slides, man. He got some chinclatas on. I don't know how is he gonna tap dance out of this shit.
What's interesting to me is that when you put money into a startup or into any company, you are told, here is the sources of funds, here's the uses of funds. And you put in $2 million into a company, hey, what are you using it for? Are you paying down debt? Are you using it for payroll? Are you using it for research and development? Are you going to try to cure cancer? What do we got here? It would seem to me that Dennis Wong would not be shocked to hear that his money was being used to pay Kawhi, but it would be interesting to find out, in my head, is did he think that he was putting in money to save the earth? That this was $2 million that was required to keep it going?
That's the part that I'm trying to get at I'm giving you guys the maximum benefit of the doubt. Dennis Wong, who has a daughter that works for the company, I have to assume even if the daughter was not in the finance department, she was a project manager, she would still be aware of the general tension in the company. I've worked at places where there was that tension.
President got fired, CEO turnover, general counsel got fired.
She shouldn't be doing her job.
Yeah, I've been in a place like that. They fire so many top-end executives that nobody even wants to take that job. It's hard for them to even replace them. And this is all before bankruptcy. And you start to see vendors coming in arguing for their money. I never forget this one guy. I don't know if my company had to pay him every 90 days was the grace period, but they owed him so much money. This guy was ready. He was ready to blow the roof off that place, man. Shit get crazy, but when your company's going downhill, everybody knows.
She may not be in the office. She may just look every 2 weeks to make sure there's a meager payment coming.
But you don't know what's up, but you know something is up. You know.
It's easy to argue.
Is it rational? Is the question.
Right.
For Dennis J. Wong.
Podcast court. There we go.
To put in, coincidentally, just enough to get the most important employee of the Los Angeles Clippers paid at the scheduled date with just 9 days to go.
Now, what Wachtel has to do is now the Clippers have to explain this one too. They have to explain this investment because the 50, you tied it to 48, 28 plus 20.
And that was months between.
Mm-hmm. I could argue how you did that, but it has to be explained. This one, for certain, has to be explained. And I don't know how he will rationalize it, but he will have to when he meets with Wachtel.
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but if you're the Clippers and this information has now come to light, is the play now that Dennis Wong was a rogue agent operating outside of the purview of Steve Ballmer and the rest of the Clippers leadership?
That's right. The only man Steve Ballmer trusted to own a percentage point of his team, the only person, is the guy who betrayed him, even though they've known each other since 1975.
Now, will he go full Ipe?
Well, now...
Let's talk about that.
Look,
that's the question.
So as we're contemplating endgame strategies, because I believe that this is the single most indicting piece of documentary evidence we have provided. According to the reporting, we have now shown how Steve Ballmer invested $50 million into Aspiration, made the company the founding partner of his basketball team's Dream Arena. Ballmer introduced his superstar Kawhi Leonard to the company, Aspiration.
The introduction got made, and then they were off to the races on their own. We weren't involved.
A year later, as the company is, again, going under, laying off 20% of its staff, losing the co-founder CEO, the president, general counsel, dozens more people. As that's happening, Kawhi Leonard is awaiting his quarterly payments of $1.75 million. And so, of course, the Uncle Dennises of the world come to collect. So, with this payment being late, and because the company was already running out of money, which is, imagine you're Steve Ballmer, in fairness to him.
How would I be able? Look, they conned me.
You're one of the richest men in America.
They conned me. I made an investment.
You put in 50.
Right.
And you're saying, by payment 2, you gotta get the different Dennis, allegedly?
Man, they was already late on payment 1. They was already late on payment 1. That was the first signal right there. The real question is how the fuck they didn't have enough money by that first payment.
Dennis Wong, Grandpa Dennis, putting in 1.99, wiring the money 9 days before Kawhi got paid for his top secret no-show job that, by the way, nobody knew about for more than 3 years until we reported it.
Now, the same way the payment for Dennis Wong went in and then it went out right to Kawhi, I believe the whole time any money that went into Aspiration, it went out the same way.
I just want to now throw it to our very senior executive source in the finance department at Aspiration for a second.
It really looks like the Clippers, through Dennis Wong, put in $2 million in order for Aspiration to be able to make the $1.75 million payment to Kawhi. That's what it looks like to me.
So the game is this a smoking gun? I don't know how much more you need in podcast court or, frankly, others. Look, at this point, I want to have you guys read the Clippers' 2 statements because I want to, again, just give them the opportunity to have foreseen that all of this could be out there. Amin, they said what?
Now, Amin right here is going to read the initial statement the Clippers made before Pablo put out this story. He let them know that he was working on something. He probably let them know what it was about. This is exactly what the Clippers had to say. And this exact quote was reported a lot different from major beat writers like Ramona Shelburne and Shams.
This is a quote from the chief communications officer of the Los Angeles Clippers. Quote, "Neither Mr. Ballmer nor the Clippers circumvented the salary cap or engaged in any misconduct related to Aspiration. Any contrary assertion is provably false."
See right there, provably false? They went from saying that to the allegations are absurd. That's how Ramona Shelburne and Shams reported it. Zach Lowe even retweeted the same thing. But this was the Clippers' first response to Pablo's reporting before he first put out the story.
And then to Shams Charania, after the episode came out,
neither the Clippers nor Steve Ballmer circumvented the salary cap. The notion that Steve invested in Aspiration in order to funnel money to Kawhi Leonard is absurd.
Absurd. So, David, I turn to you because when you ran the Marlins for a living for a very long time, you also specialized in crisis communications press releases. What does this all strike you as? Like, what do you do at
and
this
investigations
point?
And being deposed.
That's right. As a guy who's been in real court and podcast court, what do you do with this? I want you to play that role for us.
Steve Ballmer will not be going on ESPN for a follow-up interview, number one. The Clippers shall not be doing anything other than saying it is an open investigation and we are not commenting. Number two, the NBA will have no further comment because it's pending investigation. Number three. Number four is they take the information that they will get from you that they just got, and that gets added to the list of, okay, we need to check on this. This needs to somehow be rationally explained because it's yet another bit of evidence that shows the salary circumvention. So what you've done is just given Wachtell more work, more billable hours. I would expect them to have a statement that says thank you because they will get a better vacation house. The firm will have better distributions to its partners. The NBA should be sending a statement that says fuck you because they will be spending more money on this investigation, which they will then be billing back to Ballmer. Little known fact, the investigation will end up being paid for by Steve Ballmer.
So the question of punishment, the language that we outlined before about rationality in the CBA and about circumstantial versus direct evidence, I just got to remind people that the only real and kind of vague analog to this story was about a quarter century ago. I mean, you remember it?
Joe Smith and the Minnesota Timberwolves.
There was actual evidence, not circumstantial, not any sort of thought or hypotheses, that Glenn Taylor had a signed agreement, which they ended up finding with Joe Smith, to pay him money outside of his contract.
It was a promise to pay him a larger deal when his current way less paying deal was expired.
Now, the main difference from the NBA around that time frame versus now, the money that's on the line is completely different. Not only for the players, but as well as the owners. There is a lot more that's at stake. And also, unlike in those times, the distribution is a lot different. Pablo Torre would have to go through a major list of just editors and just institutions that would have the expenses to afford the cameras and have that type of distribution. There would be no YouTube. So a story like this would be much more easier to flush out. And this is where I wonder, powerful people like Steve Ballmer, if his particular generation have a blind spot. It's gotta be, because we've seen the same thing play out in politics. The way people of power that were around in the old days of media, they have not quite yet maneuvered well in the informational age. This is an age of receipts and verification, and everyone has access to at least get their voices out in some sort of mass distribution, whether it be social media, platforms like YouTube, etc. So there's an older guard in the United States, particularly of people of power. They're not used to the masses actually having information and also having ways of distributing it.
It's what we're told in baseball never to do with someone like Shohei Ohtani when he's coming from Japan. You can't promise him more than you're giving him because we'll find out.
Right.
And MLB does investigate those things and doesn't like to find that stuff out, but all teams suspect that there are nefarious things that go on.
Again, the legend, as legend has it, it's you get these verbal promises all the time. This happens a lot. But the Timberwolves and Joe Smith had it in writing because there was a fear that Glenn Taylor was not going to survive long enough to make good on that promise.
Smart.
And so they wanted it in writing.
Damn, we talking about back in the 90s. Glenn Taylor was an old man since back then? It's fucking 2025. God damn, bro, how old is this guy? They was afraid that he wasn't gonna survive back in the early 90s. My man got the potion. He got that formula, boy.
So that if he did pass and the new owner comes in, he can't say, I'm not going to pay you any of that. It's like, oh, it's in writing. You guys promised. That's why they got caught.
Well, the punishment, right? The 5 future first-round
Yep.
picks, they regained 2 after subsequent appeals.
Yep.
The $3.5 million, then record fine. The contract being voided.
Yep.
It erased his bird rights also, made him a free agent. Joe
Yep.
Smith. Glenn Taylor, the owner, suspended for a season effectively.
Woo, good luck for Adam Silver trying to do that to Steve Ballmer. Glenn Taylor is a cheap owner. He's not even well liked. He'd even help improve the overall NBA business like Steve Ballmer. It's almost night and day when you compare the two. Ballmer purchased a stadium. He purchased the land. He's increased the valuations for every single owner, where even Michael Jordan of the Charlotte Hornets can sell his team for multiple billions of dollars. So Adam Silver has to approach the man that made all this possible and try to reprimand him. And at the same time, that's his boss. The NBA has always been a league of just hierarchy conundrums. Not only is strange on the team itself, between the coaches and star players, where the star players actually hold more power, but it's even strange in this scenario with Adam Silver and Steve Ballmer.
Kevin McHale, the VP of Basketball Ops, suspended effectively, unpaid leave for that season. But the thing Amin just said about how this all came to be, yes, there was this concern about Glenn Taylor not living
Right.
long enough to pay out the contract. But the similarity to me, as Glenn Taylor is very alive
and well,
at
yes.
press time,
Thank
is that the similarity is legal. So the way this came out was that there was litigation during an agent dispute and a lawsuit, and it sprung open this documentary evidence.
Right.
It came from something else. In that way, I am reminded of how I came upon this story, which is that this all would have been fine if not for this other crazy thing that happened to unlock the door.
You know, it's far worse than Joe Smith.
3rd investigation in 10 years. A lot's on the table given that framework, and David is laughing.
I'm laughing because here's what's going to happen, is that Mark Cuban is going to tweet at you again because you clipped that bit. And then he is going to ask to speak to you again. And you are going to honor that request. And he is then going to say what? He is going to say, hey, that's cool what you found out, but Wong, that's your rabbit in a hat? We don't give a shit about Wong in the industry. It's coming.
This is an incredibly elaborate way to salary cap circumvent. If, in fact, the allegations are true.
If the reporting is correct.
If the reporting is correct, if everything that we are led to kind of connect these dots ends up to be accurate. I want to stop anyone from saying they would never be that sloppy. This is incredibly elaborate. This is not Joe Smith, to your point, where it's just
no,
like,
it's not a paper
here.
in a drawer.
Yeah,
it's we found the papers, but there are clues littered throughout the papers that did not have to ever be publicly disclosed. Like, I just want people to understand this.
It's like Ozark.
For years, they got away with what we are describing, and we haven't even gotten to all of it. But in this story, that standard of rationality, I am led as I consider what Article 12 for penalties lists, enumerates, right? A fine of up to $7.5 million, direct forfeiture of draft picks, voiding of a player contract, fine of up to $350,000 for the player, suspension for up to a year for any team personnel found to have willfully engaged in such violation, the voiding of any transaction or agreement found to have violated league rules, all that stuff.
Once again, all those rules are nice, but no one would have ever thought it would be applied to the guy who came in as an owner and made almost every single other team worth over $1 billion. That's the conundrum that Adam Silver is in. In a way, it's almost like Roger Goodell putting down a harsh, severe punishment that could possibly ruin the business or just a season or two for the Cowboys, with contract cancellations and just punishment for the team taking away draft picks. Why would you do that? The Cowboys are the NFL's cash cow. And in a way, Steve Ballmer, the way he's been moving, buying up land, paying for the stadium, buying the rival stadium across the street, making the stadium state of the art, and it's all in LA, in Inglewood, next to downtown LA. Prime real estate right there. That has now become a complete different section outside of the Lakers in the major market of Los Angeles.
Should also point out the math, if you don't mind, on $7.5 million, which is supposed to be a serious fine. For Steve Ballmer, that's the equivalent of a $10 fine to someone who has a net worth of $200,000.
It may explain why he has allegedly tried to do this 3 times. It also helps explain why our investigation continues to grow.
I'm not gonna lie, Pablo may not look it, but he's diabolical right now. And I'm pretty sure he has way more information coming down that pipeline. But hey, it is what it is. You guys definitely hit up the link in the description below. We got more NBA stories like this. And also hit up the mailbag with any questions you have. And until next time, we'll see how deep the rabbit hole gets. You guys stay safe. Peace.